Hello and welcome to the Metta YouTube channel and to this video on Anthropocentrism, in where I want to try to show my perspectives on Anthropocentrism from a vegan lens and see how Anthropocentrism is really one of the major factors in the resistance that people have in going vegan. So the value of actually knowing what the driving, motivating factor, or at least one of them, is, gives us the ability to be able to more lucidly be able to communicate veganism to people and make people aware of their own anthropocentrism, and to ourselves take into consideration when we're advocating on the behalf of animals, the understanding that there is this ideology that's underpinning the person you're speaking to. Of course, it isn't something that you automatically transcend after you go vegan, but it is something that one has become more aware of, in my view. So the definition of anthropocentrism is that it is the attitude that everything here on earth was put here for the use of humans. So there's this kind of underlying metaphysical story we tell ourselves, the narrative that the resources and the animals here on earth are here for our use and for our own benefit. And this belief that earth was made and the animals on earth was made can be found very rooted in the interpretation that most people bring up of the example here, which is that God said that we should have dominion over the animals on earth. I'm sure you're familiar with this argument if you've spoken to people about veganism before. The fact that God made animals, or that animals exist here for the benefit of ourselves, which is rooted in an anthropocentric lens. So you can separate the spiritual aspect away from the anthropocentric part, because to limit your religion or to limit your spirituality to the domain of humans is a very narrow spiritual connection to all of life. And it is something to be aware of when you're speaking to people, like to be able to bring to light, bring to consciousness their anthropocentrism. And how you do that is by poking and trying to bring forth those assumptions in a conversation about veganism, and try to see if they truly do believe or not that animals are here on earth for the benefit, for the use of humans. Another aspect of this is that anthropocentrism is very closely tied in some philosophical movements to feminism, and specifically ecofeminism, in that there is a hierarchy of power that exists, as Melanie Joy speaks about, if you're familiar with her and her work, which is this idea of the powerarchy, the hierarchy of power. And the innermost core of what drives all forms of oppression is the belief that there even exists such a duality as superior and lesser. So you see this in terms of popular culture portraying men as more superior than women, and humanity as more superior than nature, and that we have these dichotomous like categories, and we clash them together and create this kind of image of a war between ourselves and nature and women and men. So to be aware of that duality and to not blame people for holding that view is really important if it is such that you want to be able to communicate veganism effectively, because to tell people that their view is wrong or that their view is faulty in a way that does not show them where they went wrong is something that is not very helpful in my view. So to try to speak to people about veganism in a way that shows through compassion where they have misstepped, and forgive them for making the mistakes they have made, for being humans. Like, we cannot just blame people blindly for holding the anthropocentric view when, at least in my case, I held that view for 21 years. So it's very important to see how rooted some of these ideologies and some of these driving factors can be. And in the case of what kind of foods it is that we eat, and the view that animals are food items for us to consume, that is very closely tied with survival as well. So you have the one of the most powerful biological mechanisms, which is the self-preservation and the self-survival, driving what motivates the behavior of an individual to either consume animals or otherwise. And when you have beliefs such that it is okay to eat animals on the basis that they are objects for the nutrition of humans, tied in with our own survival, that becomes a very deep issue to resolve within the soul of the individual, because it is something that's so fundamental to who we are as living organisms. And to be wary of that when you're speaking to people about veganism, at least in my case, has brought on a humility of speech and of understanding. And at the end of the day, whatever I do, and me as a vegan, I live my life the way I do, and I have made the choices I have made. I cannot then be responsible for the unwillingness of other people to not make that same change as well. Of course, we are speaking about the killing of the lives of other sentient beings, of course, when we're speaking about veganism, but it's so important to remember that in the anthropocentric lens and the anthropocentric view of animals, they are not necessarily the same, because through an anthropocentric lens, the qualities of what constitutes being human is what is favored. So all other beings that do not have the same characteristics as humans do are seen to be less or inferior than ourselves. So to be conscious of that and to bring that to light and to be wary of that when you're speaking to people about veganism will, in my view, very much allow you to be able to analyze more deeply where the root issue of the person you're speaking to is located, such that you bring to light their assumptions and their axioms, so that you can more effectively speak to those persons about veganism. And if you do want to read more about anthropocentrism, there is a Wikipedia page about it. There's also a documentary there that's called The Superior Human, which is very much a good documentary which shows the different aspects of what constitutes human characteristics that people tend to assume to be superior than the animal characteristics found in other species of animals, that is. So I find humility in aligning myself horizontally alongside animals, as opposed to horizontally living in a hierarchy, because these hierarchies are not necessarily something that's objectively existing in reality. They are constructions of the mind. So being aware of that yourself, and to be to round your corners of speech, so to speak, so you're not that sharp when you're engaging with people, will allow you to more easily get deeper into the conversation and find the fundamental root of where their emotional driving and like engine is, so to speak. So you can prod and try to recognize some patterns in the speech of the other person you're speaking to, such that you can more effectively allow them to see that veganism is something that's latent and inherent in themselves, if they so allow the compassion to spring forth from their inside. So I hope that's valuable, and I hope my perspectives on anthropocentrism is of like, if it is informative at the very least. And I very much appreciate if you press that subscribe button and the like button if you think the information I presented here today was valuable. And if you ever do have any questions to me or whatever else there may be, feel free to leave a message down below in the comment sections. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching this video on anthropocentrism. Metta signing out.